Okay, thank you. Okay, so you've already heard a little bit about us. I'm Andrew, and Jordi will be with me on this and join for the second part. What I'm going to take you through is some of our learnings in our gamification projects that we've taken part in for a couple of years, and Jordi is going to essentially show how we've applied that to some future development, some future product development, and essentially learned from our experiences. So just kicking off, who is Achievement Awards Group? So we are essentially in the people performance business. We've been in the business for 40 years. We're about 10 years away from earning our 50 years in business badge. And then I guess we'll keep going until it's 100 years or whatever. And essentially, we focus on the participant experience, and we pride ourselves on creating programs that work. And a big part of that is that we feel we bring the science and art together. And so as I say, for 40 years, we've been creating these human performance systems and been involved in behavior science, motivation systems, gamification, and pretty much everything in between. And many of you will know the famous quote, "A bad system will beat a good person every time." So we essentially try to build a good system, and that's a little more difficult than it sounds. But applying design thinking, which is common for these kinds of systems, we look at the participant journey. I've already said we focus on participants, and that's a huge part of creating these kind of systems. So essentially sketching out the experience, the participant journey, and looking at it in huge detail, being very attentive to the minute pieces of that experience is something that we focus on, as I say, in the design thinking process. Looking at Bartle's player types, etc., helps you identify what behaviors that you're going to be able to foster and kind of align your design to that. So we set about creating gamified solutions, focusing on contact center engagement, a highly measured area of companies, and looking at feedback loops, feedback mechanisms to foster certain behaviors based on feedback, and keying into certain metrics. Of course, giving management access to these metrics allows for management themselves to get involved in those nudges, that encouragement. And as we roll through this, you can see we've created a couple of systems which really encourage different types of behaviors. Here's an example of a workforce wellness solution, which was done a little while back. And essentially that's all about employee happiness in a holistic way, encouraging health, wellness, etc. And that's really all about showing and depicting your progress and then nudging and encouraging on that journey. So looking at our essentially our gamification education over the years, and bear in mind that I'm getting to the lessons so that we can see how that applies to our future. We've been on a journey of creating or building ourselves. A lot of people choose the build it yourself route first, but you can quickly see that when you go out of MVP and into an enhancement stage, and you're looking at competing with other core business areas, you end up with some challenges, and you end up with potentially some technical debt. In fact, that's around about that time where you look up the definition of technical debt, and you find that you're in a situation where you potentially have to partner in order to get better. So we looked at that. We looked at the winners in the space, and we looked at that partnership in order to get us to that next level. And the partner that we found was Mambo. So without going into too much detail, I can tell you that Mambo essentially there's a hugely capable trigger-based engine which allows us to simulate scenarios, and with hugely flexible configuration, essentially unlocked our ability to focus on the front end, focus on the solution design. So it took us out of the engine room, so to speak, and put us into a space where we could start looking at contact center engagements in an enhanced way. So looking at beautiful themes and interfaces, and this is a collectibles game that was created and designed in-house so that we could really engage that audience. We were able to focus on onboarding and really bringing people into the solution. Our solution architect at the time personally made sure that people were brought into this solution and knew every aspect of it. Content was produced, and it was again in-house content that was aligned to the behaviors that we were trying to foster in the contact center solution. With, as I say, the design allowed us to create a collectibles interface, and a huge library of theme elements was created in order to keep someone engaged for a period of time. Now, our report card on that looks pretty good. In fact, almost too good. So we went from a 60% engagement to a 90% engagement. In fact, people couldn't get enough of this. And of course, there's always a but. Now, the great lesson here is we discovered that more granular participant definitions were needed. We had taken a little bit too much care with participant journeys that were about the end user and not perhaps team leaders and managers. And of course, they're playing a game, but not necessarily the same game or having a game experience. And then, of course, the obvious one about balancing the game experience was too easy for certain people. So there were certain groups, a small group of people that finished 90 days of content in 2 weeks. Now, of course, we should never have allowed that to happen, but that's part of the learning. And as I said, the Mambo engine allowed us to focus on the game, but perhaps we focused a little bit too much on the game and missed a few spots. So, and then of course the last thing is when you go from 60% to 98%, your tech infrastructure team gets a little bit worried about the load on the server and the environment, and the last thing you want your infrastructure team to be is concerned. So yeah, a lot of learnings there, and when we look at those, the key points is we had to figure out what to make of this. So balancing the game, balancing our solution design was a big part of that. The player types, we realized that if you're looking at Bartles and you figure you've got, for example, an explorer type, an explorer manager is different from an explorer end user, so we needed to define those in a more granular way. And then, of course, thanks to Amy Jo Kim, should have learned this lesson a bit earlier when I went on the course, but game thinking rather than game making. It's all about the elements and not necessarily always making a game and focusing on trying to create a game experience. So the content was something we did learn. We did create this wealth of content. And of course, whether it's from your IT department or whether it's from your client or your user base, expect change. So that's something you need to be flexible with these. And as I say, learn how to learn from the failure. If it's a failure, that's fine, as long as you can learn from it. Now, the learning is applied to the second part of this presentation, which is essentially a solution that we were building on the other side of the building. So there's a bountyxp.com. You can find out more information there. So Bounty XP is a recognition and reward platform, a recognition engagement platform that allows you to reward people for good behavior, good work, and essentially allows companies to do that very elusive thing, which is to align your people to your strategy. So I'm going to hand over to Jordi to help you to understand how we've applied those learnings and some of that experience to this platform.
Thanks very much, Andrew. My name is Jordi Williams. I've been with the Achievement Awards Group for 17 years now. My current role in the company is focusing on gamification, solution design, and the project management and the delivery of those enhancements on the Bounty XP platform. Continuing where Andrew left off, once we started unpacking the learnings from previous platforms and the solutions that we had delivered, we began the task of unpacking all of this data into bite-sized categories, figuring out where the important learnings sat with employees and what they value, with business values and how to include employees in the journey of achieving strategic goals, and where we could learn, adapt, and enhance our capabilities from a solution design point of view. Once we had gone through that process, we categorized everything into three main sections. The first one was the desired actions, and those were either for our needs as a platform holder or for our clients' needs based on their corporate values, or the employees' needs as users. Repeating behavior, which was focusing on activity loops, onboarding, platform journeys, and the delivery of goals, and intrinsic pulls that were required into our solution, which was enhancing the feedback mechanics, when to deploy comms, when to hold off, and what the appropriate feedback types were for each activity. This led us into a very interesting discussion around multiple win states and how our narrative-based story solutions weren't the be-all and end-all that we started off with. Early on in the design thinking process, we realized that we had to do some work in the platform discovery approach. And we knew that the best way to appreciate users' time was to make it as easy and as quick as possible to fulfill each of the goals that the platform had to offer. In order to do this, we revisited our onboarding approach, our other user journeys through each of the user journey types, and we created quickly achievable missions in bite-sized chunks in order to teach the users the features of the platform, how to navigate around it, and the different areas that we had on offer, and we added in beneficial rewards for each of those missions that were achieved. We also added in a few Easter eggs around the platform that unlocked hidden missions for those taking the time to explore and discover outside of our preconceived missions criteria. This allowed us to introduce multiple win states early on, which was taking that learning of our fixed narrative and changing it up. Once we had our fixed missions in place, we then took on the task of journeys and activity loops. We started this by reviewing every tracking event that we currently had in our platform at the time and began the process of creating new events that would allow us to create meaningful activity loops, create a roadmap for all of the features we were exploring that required gamification layering. We created feedback loops for every journey, allowing us to intelligently prompt users in fulfilling their daily goals in order to not miss out on rewards. Daily goals was actually another interesting area that we introduced to the platform, where we realized that the monthly prompt was too long. It was a slow activity cycle, so we brought it down to a daily goal, and the daily goals allowed us to create an engine that prioritized actions based on client and platform feedback. That new approach to creating these activity loops also meant that we had a means to track and measure user activities around the platform for our own benefits and for client benefits and feedback as well. We don't have a lot of time, but what I wanted to just touch on was the ability to create everything that all of these features hang off of, which was a customized leveling system that we built from scratch, which served as the backbone for measuring and balancing all of the features and activity loops that we were going to introduce into the system, making sure that we didn't have a scenario where users completed everything in the first 3 months. What we did to make sure that that leveling system worked was we actually took all of the tracking data that we currently had in the system and we matched it to old campaigns that we had run up to 4 years ago to see how that tracking would affect level progression and the earning of experience points and awards in new systems and new solutions. Taking in all of these learnings, we realized that we needed a better way of showing leaderboards. So we took an ethos of competence and connection over competition, which was inspired by a study at Habitri, where users could then view not just one leaderboard, but the leaderboards in multiple areas of the platform that was meaningful to them. This then also gave us the way to introduce better feedback mechanics to entice them into exploring newer areas of the platform that we were launching at the time. Another way of allowing employees to engage with each other was to redesign the profile page, allowing them to share the recognitions that they had received, or to recognize others for journeys that they had fulfilled. This area of the platform has gone through many iterations, and since this example that we're on now has gone through even more. And what I just wanted to finish up on was what is probably the most important area that we're focusing on at the moment, which is taking all of these learnings and new features and bringing them together in a very interesting process. The way that we work now, as opposed to a few years ago with the pandemic and everything that's going on, is very different. People are physically disconnected from their workplace, and we wanted to create a place in our platform that brings everybody back together to show them that they're part of a group effort and a group culture, and that social disconnection isn't something that is, that they can get back to. They may not physically be in the office surrounded by their peers and their colleagues, but it's a way that they can interact with each other again, share all of the rewards, share all of those journeys that they've been on, recognize each other for long service and anniversaries. And this social hub that we've created is essentially the heartbeat of each of the clients' portals and each of the employees' journeys. It allows them to view their activities, their engagements, their points that they've earned. They can browse rewards, whether it be monetary, non-monetary, and so forth. And we're calling this the digital office, as a means for connecting everybody that's now physically disconnected. And the lessons that we've learned in this process is that the only constant is change, and that we need to be ready to face that challenge. We know that keeping a finger on the pulse of what's important to employees also changes based on internal and external environments. And in order to retain engagement, we need to be valid and connected to the needs of employees and our clients. The gamification solution design process has greatly assisted us with how we approach these challenges and how we design solutions. And we also appreciate the importance of failing quickly so that we can learn from these and adapt, and allowing us to meet clients' needs and expectations before they even realize they need it. Learn to fail and fail forward. That's our new motto. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew and Jordi, and for also showing us the importance of being our own best playtesters as designers, continuing to look through our work and evaluate it and improve it where we can. And clearly that has worked very well for the both of you. Unfortunately, we don't have time for any questions, but please do, everybody who's listening, reach out to Andrew and Jordi, connect with them. All their social media links are on the Gamification Europe website. So Andrew and Jordi, thank you for your time and sharing your presentation today.